This is a little special evening because we're going a bit out of the envelope, you could say, and we're doing a series of stuff with famous New Zealand riders. And I thought the best way to start, and in my consideration, that we have here tonight what I consider two of New Zealand's best ever motorcycle riders, given the long, long careers they had over the years. So without too much further ado, I'd like to welcome to the room two of our best ever motorcycle riders. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Stroud and Aaron Slight. What I want to do tonight is start off with Andrew, because he's now stretched himself out in a career for a long, long time, and now at the tender age of 47. And what's happening right now is the people that aren't in the room here are simultaneously is what I'm talking now, on TV3 News is this announcement, okay? And also on social media through Facebook and all that, and our website and stuff. But 3 years ago, Andrew retired from racing and family and stuff. He got a bit injured and stuff like that. But the announcement tonight I want to make to you in front of everybody on behalf of Andrew and stuff is to say that he's coming out of retirement this year and starting racing again.
So shake your head or what? There you go.
You don't know this is on the TV news tonight on TV3, so you heard it here first. We're about 3 minutes in front of them, okay? Yeah. It's quite a wonderful thing, really. And Stroudy, what's going on here? Come on, tell the people.
Yeah. I got a call from Suzuki and the opportunity was there, and I wouldn't mind doing that again. Yeah. So here we are.
Here we are.
and it's also...
Oh, my God.
What do you think about
Aaron's
this, Slidey? Yeah. What have you got to say, please?
Well, I'm 2 years older and I'm well over the hill from riding, and I think it's quite amazing. And if Andrew can get anywhere near the pace of 3 years ago, well, good on you. And that means, you've been keeping fit and keeping on it, and just stay safe.
That's the thing.
And so, Stroudy's won the New Zealand superbike title 9 times. That's not bad. Now he's after his 10th. One for each child, yeah? Well,
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Without much further ado, we'd like to also give you a surprise, because you don't even know this. Here is the bike you're going to ride.
Is it? Okay. Great.
Okay?
Good.
I can tell you this bike was flown down here tonight especially by Suzuki New Zealand. The local dealers don't even know that it was happening, but they've come along tonight at my invitation to actually stand up and actually present the keys of the bike to Andrew. That's why we got the bike.
Wow. Thank you. I do.
So that set the evening off not bad, has it? Yeah. Put the key in. There's no battery in it, Stroud. You've got to buy your own.
The burnout on the ramp.
Also, I want to also say tonight too to everybody that New Zealand Classic Motorcycles here will be contributing to the support of Andrew in his quest to become the 10-time New Zealand Championship. We are helping him through Tom in America, and there's been we're going to do some help with Andrew, so just so you know that. So we're part of it here.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So where's my bike? Where's my bike? Where's my bike?
No, don't introduce you to bloody old Vespa here. That's you, buddy. Fair enough. I can't talk to you.
It's paparazzi.
Now we're going to go back in time, a trip. first of all, the guys did their apprenticeship on the little bikes and stuff like that. You used to ride in 250 production.
Yeah,
Both
okay.
of you did.
Yep.
Tell us about those days.
For me, I mean, the production bike, I think, was New Zealand racing. The production bike racing started a long time before I did with the RDs and, the 400 and stuff like that. So it was way before my time, and I think, it just created a series that started to get going. And the time Andrew and I got there, Andrew was probably a TZR his first one. Mine was the RZ. There was fields of 30 guys, 35 guys, and all within a second lap time. And, what I say about production racing is that you're only 2 or 3 clicks away from the perfect setting, because that's all you've got. So you can't really bamboozle yourself with, too much information. You're just out there riding. That was what it was about. It was about the person riding it, not about the machine. And I think that's, when Andrew came along then, and with the 250 and the 1000, it was just, you didn't need to spend a lot of money. You didn't have to have a super sport bike that was worth 30 grand. You paid your 10 grand, you turned up.
Yeah. I remember Tony Reese used to pass me down the straight all the time. I said, "Oh, your bike's faster than mine." Then we swapped bikes and he passed me down the straight again. It's just been a bit smaller and a bit lighter. But there was great racing in those 250s. It really taught you how to ride.
And just coming back to lately too, some local guys from my local town, the Burkhart boys, they were great motocrossers. And Jonathan, he started road racing, and instantly he was quick. But he rode a supersport bike, so he bought a bike from Sean Harris, which has been rolled, bowled, and arseholed, and it's all this sort of stuff, and he was going good on it, but it's 3 or 4 years old. So then he had to go in the championship, then he had to buy new tyres every race, and the guy just gave up because he couldn't afford to buy another bike. He had a potty bike, 10 grand, he would have been sweet. He would have been a next New Zealand champion.
Yeah. So it's a pity it doesn't happen anymore. I think we'd produce more riders if we had decent nursery classes. That's what we're saying, isn't it? Yeah. So here's Andrew having to go out and race with his own son. Next year.
We could have voted Aaron for president.
But I mean, that's the great thing here tonight. I mean, Suzuki, backing Andrew. I mean, that's really good to see. It's really hard in a small country to come up with some free stuff.
Yeah.
How do you get a bike? So, good on Suzuki, stepping back in with an older fella.
Yeah.
But they can see the merit in the association, and good on them.
Suzuki being fantastic for me, really.
Yeah,
They've put in way more than I thought.
Thanks, guys.
They would,
Yeah.
for New Zealand.
How many titles did you win on Suzuki? You won 9 titles. Were they all on the same bikes?
No. A couple on the Britons, AWA 1.
Yeah.
Maybe all the rest on Suzuki's though.
Yeah, most of them on Suzuki. So, yeah, well done. Suzuki have been big supporters of motorcycle production racing right back to the old RGVs.
My day...
We're talking about in the 80s,
Yeah, in my day with Manfield was always well into motorcycles, with Robert Holden and Bob Toomey and Eddie Kattenberg, and, they were right behind it.
Yep, they were too. There's good to hear those names you're dropping. Yeah, good stuff.
Robert Holden going through the Holden sign at Manfield.
Yeah.
On a big 1135 that nobody thought could make it around a racetrack.
You guys used to throw the bikes that far down the track you had to pay to get back in. And so superbikes came out and had TV at every round, and the guys will tell you that the crowds, weren't they slightly, they were bigger than, the crowds were bigger in superbikes than they were in Grand Prix racing.
I had a quote today that, in 1998 at Brands Hatch, the World Superbike Race was the biggest event in England that year, the biggest outdoor event. We had 129,000 people come to race day on the Sunday. Football matches were getting 70 or 80, but we had 129, and at the time F1 was getting about 30 to Silverstone, and Grand Prix were getting about 40. So it was the biggest event in England that year.
Yeah, and the riders were all household names. It was just incredible. Yeah. So we'll start off in that era and how it happened that the superbikes were bikes that had to be made that you just go into a motorbike shop and buy one. They're production bikes, okay? And so what the companies did, or the FIM, said, okay, you've got it in the writing there, they had to make 1,000 bikes. That meant the bike was a production bike. There had to be 1,000 examples for sale, and then you could race it. The championship was designed really to be normal production bikes that you went racing on. And the first example we can bring out tonight is Kawasaki were really a prime example of that kind of bike. That was just this bike is really a touring bike. It's called a GPX. It's from 1986. So this bike's, what is it, nearly 29 years old now. It's pretty old.
Kawasaki said to me, why don't you come and race in Australia? Why don't you come to the championship in Australia? And so we went to the Swan Series. The Swan Series was an event they had in Australia at the end of the year. It was 3 weekends in a row. It was in New South Wales, so Melbourne, Sydney and Queensland. And Robbie got a factory F1 bike and they gave me his old GPX. But it was a well and true bike. He'd been riding it, campaigning for about 3 years. So I rode that in the Swan Series that year. And it was my first sort of factory ride, although it was an old bike. And I turned up there, and Robbie had all his good gear and Kushitani leathers and stuff. And for me, Kushitani leathers they were the be all and end all. I'd seen all these riders with them. And Robbie gave me a set of these leathers, and I just thought because he's a factory rider, he doesn't need them back. And and now I've got a factory bike, I can throw it down the road as many times as I like, and they'll fix it, and it'll all be good. And about two days into it, Robbie said, "You better stop fucking crashing that motorbike of mine. I ain't got that many suits."
Now what happened, 1988's coming around, and the championship's really starting to go, and Honda shocked the world because the championship was designed for motorcycles, like I say, street bikes, but Honda made racing bikes into street bikes. They did it the other way around, and a really, really amazing thing happened. Honda built 1,000 racing bikes and put them on the market for sale. That's the famous RC30. Have you all heard of an RC30? I guess. It's one of the most iconic superbikes ever made. It won the World Championship the first 2 years ever by Fred Merkel. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I rode one of those 91 Suzuki 8-hour.
Yeah.
Took a bit of getting used to it. Steered a little bit different to the other superbikes. A lot of offset in the triple clamps, and the rear suspension was pretty soft, but I kind of got the hang of it in the end. I think in one stint I did Suzuki, I remember following Aaron for pretty much the whole hour when he was on this Kawasaki.
I can remember one stint I didn't practice behind Andrew.
Oh, really?
We're going down the front straight, and Andrew's on my old team Super Angel bike, and there's me and about 3 factory bikes slips through behind Andrew, and Andrew drops a rod or something, just straight at the bottom, and oil everywhere. And then there's 3 factory bikes climbing the fence at the end of the straight, doing 280k an hour, and we all went down a big screaming heap.
Is that me? Oh, sorry.
Now we're coming to another bike that we're going to present that they both rode. So at different times, but they both rode this. This is quite an unusual bike, come from Italy. That's the famous Bimoto YB4. Y means it's got a Yamaha engine. B Bimoto, it's the 4th model they made, and it was pretty much the world's first fuel-injected bike. But both these guys rode a Bimoto, so tell us who goes first, the tallest one first.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I rode Murray Carter from Shanton. He sponsored me back in the early days, and he bought one, which was very generous of him. And so I raced at the World Superbike round,
This one?
was it 89, I suppose, was it?
It's in the program.
88.
89, 88.
88, maybe. In 88.
88,
88.
yeah.
Yeah. Here's the old programs from the day. You want to see the photo of him when he's 21 years old?
I don't remember what place I qualified. I think I did a 1:11.2 around Manfield, and pole position was about 10.4 or something. So not too far off, really. They're good bikes to ride, good chassis and everything. It rained in one of the races, and the seat was so slippery I couldn't stay on the thing. It was a problem. But, then I rode one in Japan as well when I first raced there in 89, and I was racing at Sugo, and I was leading it for a while. The Honda factory guy got past me, and I was second behind him, going really well, because it was pretty hot pace over there. And then I high-sided it.
You fell off it.
Just before I went up for the race, I was swinging my arms around a bit, and Chris Haldane was there. I said, I'm just doing this in case I break my collarbone. And we'd just been talking about trying to hang on to a bike if you have a big moment, not to let it chuck you off. And I thought about that as it stepped out, and I hung on to it a little bit too long, just enough to pull it on top of me when I hit the ground, and it knocked the wind out of me, broke my collarbone.
In 1989, I went to Japan. That was my big breakthrough. And I went to Japan because Mick Doohan, I sort of followed Mick Doohan in a way. In '88, Mick Doohan went to Japan and he rode for the biggest Yamaha shop in Tokyo. And so he was up there, and the next year he got a ride back in Australia on a factory Yamaha. So this businessman who owned the shop decided that he'd keep gauging on his staff, which was me, and then it was Andrew after that. So I went up there in '89, and in his wisdom he thought he'd ditch the Yamahas and buy a motor with a Yamaha engine. And so that's what I rode in Yamaha in '89 in the superbikes. And they were starting superbikes, so they had superbike event. It was one race, and then they'd have an F1 event as another race on the day. And sometimes they'd have a 250 race, so he bought me a TZ 250 as well. So I used to race this, and then we used to put flat slide carbs on, because the flat slides are a bit faster for the F1 race, and then race on the F1, and then put the injection back on it for the superbike, and then try and ride the 250 as well. All with a bunch of mechanics that really were a bit suspect, but anyway, we got by. And this bike gave me my big breakthrough, because I beat Rob Phillis in the World Superbike event at Sugo on this bike, which got me the ride in his team for the next year back in Australia. So it was a good thing for me. And I can remember a little story though that I don't know, and it was at Fuji that year. We went to Fuji, and for the F1 race, Morinaga says to me, he says, "Well, we have special qualifying engine for this bike." I said, "Oh, here we go." Okay, so he says, "But maybe only hold it, 3/4 throttle on the straight for the first lap and the second lap." So I knew that it wasn't going to be a YB4 750 anymore. It was actually 1,000. So for qualifying, the boys had slipped in a 1,000 production engine. So I'm coming down the front straight going, I just don't need to be sitting in the slipstream here. I can pull out and pass. It was getting embarrassing. And I thought I just couldn't do it. And I came out next time, I thought I'd just give the thing a whiz up. And it actually bolted 750 heads on it. So when I gave it full throttle, I just bent all the valves. So that was it.
Now here comes a special bike.
Sit here all night.
And the guys will have some stories about this, that Yamaha, the same year as Honda, had just produced that last bike, the RC30, and Yamaha had to follow suit. So who was going to talk about OW01? Stroudy, you've biffed one end over end once. I've got a video of it. You go first.
I was going to.
The floor is yours.
I was going to say it was. They are really pretty, but I've seen one in 2 pieces somewhere. So
Yeah.
There isn't 1,000 left, by the way.
I did an awful lot of very hard racing on one of those.
Yeah.
I started off in '89 at the All Japan Championship, which was, there's 15 factory bikes pretty much in every race. So, and they'd just smoke you by 50 metres down the straight on a privateer bike. So I was on one of these. One thing I couldn't work out as well, through the chicanes, and the Japanese guys were just so much faster getting through and around some of the long sweepers, hold a much tighter line. And it wasn't until the end of the year I worked out my teammate was a Japanese guy. He had inserts in the steering head which thicken up the steering head about a bit over a degree, and they really needed that. That really made them heaps better.
Yeah.
So this guy Morinaga was the guy I rode the year before for, and he had the biggest dealership in Tokyo. He had about 4 dealerships in Tokyo, so he sold the most Yamahas in Tokyo. So he was pretty well to do, and it was his, I suppose, his structure to have a gauging rider was really good for the company, and it helps motorbikes, and good on him for sticking with a few Kiwis.
Yeah. I raced it at the 500 GP came to Eastern Creek, and I thought I just won the New Zealand F1 I think back then, and I thought if I can get over there and put in a bit of a good show, it's in front of a lot of the right people you want to impress. So I'd pay for it myself, but I went over there and I ended up was going right. Aaron must have got balked in qualifying, but I ended up on pole anyway on my bike from New Zealand in the Aussie Superbike support race. And Morinaga had flown over to Australia for it, so he was there watching, and he paid for my tyres and things. And then I missed the start. I was late getting out. The guy shut the gate just as I was coming up to it.
Wouldn't have been your fault.
No, it wasn't my fault.
You were late for the start, Stroudy. That's unusual.
Yeah, so it was very unusual. But there's a big field, there's about 75 bikes in the race, and I had to start in pit lane on brand new tyres that were cold. So I was really fired up, and after about 18 laps, I got through just behind Mel Campbell, who was second. Aaron he cleared out in front, and just over the bridge there, I just rolled off, probably doing 200 k's, shut off for turn 3, and it just went totally sideways on me, and I thought, I was looking down the hill, thinking this is going to be a big fall, it's going to be nasty, and it just flicked back the other way, and nearly chucked me off again, and just the other way, all the way down the hill, until I hit the grass. I was just end for end, just tumbling down. This mechanic, Malaysian guy we had, he hadn't done up the oil filter properly, so it unscrewed and blew the seal out and blew all it onto the back tyre. But it made the TV, and apparently they played it in Gillette World of Sport highlights package for ages, for a few years afterwards. Yeah. So that's the main thing, eh?
When you walk through those things at airports, do you set off all the alarms and rattle all the amount of metal in your bodies?
No.
I don't have any.
Yes, you do.
I had a plate in my collarbone. I got it out last year.
Yeah, okay. What about you?
No, not too bad. And I haven't had that many breaks, really. I've had the whole lot of fractures, which you just do, like what Andrew said, you just cut the cast off and get on with it.
Yeah.
Worst was my hand injury, which just wore out the back of my hand, which was pretty bad at the time. And but yeah, that's the worst injury, but not like the motocrossers of today, which you know, knee replacements and shoulder, you have to fix your shoulders up and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't that bad then.
Stroud rode one of these and completely destroyed it. I've seen the video. It's unbelievable. So there's only 999 of them left now, I guess.
Yeah, I remember Barry Sheen was commentating. I remember saying it was very lucky it didn't land on him, because it was going way up in the air and slamming down beside me.
I think he went under the bike. The bike was spinning in the air, people, and slowly it was going along the ground, and the bike kind of just landed. Oh, lucky, yeah. So, of course, both of you guys are blessed like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do up your oil filters.
Thank you very much. Well done. The story. Here's another bike that they've probably both thrown down the road a few times coming in. What happened was Kawasaki stuck to their promise that they'd only make bikes that you could go and buy. They didn't actually make a homologation special. And so remember the Kawasaki over here, we had the first bike. They decided they better put a decent sort of chassis around it. And came along this bike called the ZXR 750 H1. My God, they weren't too bad a bike for the money, were they? And set slightly off on a...
Yep, good bike, and that's why I rode the uglier GPX, because I signed the contract to ride this bike for the next year. And Australia has had an amazing career for superbike riders, and they've had a lot of support from the factories. So when I rode for Kawasaki, Neville Doyle, his son Peter Doyle, and I don't know if you know Neville Doyle or not, but he was Cork Bellington's mechanic back in the the 60s and 70s on the GP bikes. So they had a lot of trust within Neville and then his son Peter. And with that, they bought factory bikes, and Kawasaki came down and tested at Eastern Creek, and they bought about 10 of these bikes, and 4 Japanese riders, and me and Robbie rode. And they bought F1 bikes because F1s were still there. So we started doing a lot of development in Australia for Kawasaki and had a really close tie with them. And this was their first attempt at the World Superbikes.
I think I raced one of these at Willow Springs when I went in, that was 88, rode for John Ulrich, Team Hammer, American Suzuki. But then I rode 91, 92, no it wasn't, it was 92, 93, I rode for Dutchman Racing in America, 1100s of these. But one of them I rode had a 750 chassis with 1100 engine, which got around a lot better. But you could ride them really hard. They bob around a bit, but you could really get hold of them and chuck them around it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's at Elkhart Lake. It's got one of the fastest, fastest track in America, pretty much, really long straights. And it was tank slapping everywhere. The steering damper was leaking oil, and I kept winding up the clicker. And I wound it up to the point where it locked the steering solid. I didn't know that. I came onto the front straight, and I gave another couple of clicks. And flying up the hill over the top gear, 12,000 revs, just coming up to the pits in the grandstand, and it just did this huge wobble and just chucked me off.
Yeah.
I was thought you're joking. I was just like Superman, just flying through the air, my hands in front of me, knees behind me, just warp speed.
That's good to know. There's only 199 of these left.
That's right.
Stroud was your ultimate win or crash guy, you know.
Well, it's got no front brake.
It's got no front brake.
Crash it again.
We knew you were coming, Stroudy.
Yeah, I rode one in America in '93. It was a fast bike Ferracci one,
Yeah.
like what Poland won the world championship on, world superbikes. And engine-wise, it was great. Loads of bottom-end torque, real smooth. Just you could open the throttle a couple of bike lengths before the four-cylinder bikes. It wouldn't spin up. Really tractable.
Yeah. Did you fall off one? I don't think so.
No.
You fell off a lot of things.
Scott Doohan rode the bike straight after me because I had to go and do something else, and he got a bit of a battle with this guy at Road Atlanta, and the guy who was racing against got a real fight, bit of road rage, to the point where he, at the end of the straight, 180 miles an hour, this guy jumped off his bike onto it, grabbed Scott around the neck and ripped him off it, and they had a massive crash. He's in hospital, bad head injury. It was a real serious thing, really, but
A cutthroat sport, yeah.
yeah.
So we'll keep on moving on. What we're going to do next is get to a Kawasaki. Finally in 1991 this happened. They got around to homologating a motorcycle, and this is the bike. And Aaron rode this for quite a few years and did a lot of work on it, and made him quite famous, really, I think. So I'd love to hear your story, Aaron.
Well, this bike, yeah, like you're saying, we spent a lot of time with the other bikes developing it up and down to Japan, testing, and actually I think you see on the next one of these, somewhere on the line, we've got an eccentric swing arm pivot. So we were playing around within the rules, because you were allowed to do things within the rules to move the swing arm pivot around and to get better traction out of this bike. But I took delivery of this bike sort of halfway through 1991, and that year we had a Pan Pacific Championship, and that actually came to New Zealand. So we raced in Malaysia and Japan and New Zealand, and I won every race that year in the Pan Pacific Championship on this bike. And then went on to win the Australian Superbike Championship on this bike as well. At the time, it was a new bike to the class in Australia, and we thought we might have some teething problems because everyone else was still riding their OWO1s and their RC30s. So they were going pretty well, but this came out and it actually just horsepowered them. It had really good horsepower, but it was a really good bike, and Kawasaki were now making a race bike for the road, but without the kit, so it made it a reasonable price to buy.
And then you made a change. You changed brand.
Yeah.
And so we'll show everybody tonight the bike that Aaron left and the bike he went to.
Honda was coming back to racing, and so I was approached by Honda to go and lead the team. Well, at the time, it was actually Doug Poland was supposed to lead the team with the development of the RC45. So, for me, it was Honda coming to racing. I get to ride for Honda. I thought it was a great move, and this was the bike we were presented with at Phillip Island, and I get to Phillip Island and at my very, very first test on the RC45, and knowing it was Honda, I thought, this thing's going to be a weapon, and this is going to be that, and we got there, and I was a lap record holder at Phillip Island with a 1 minute 38.3. And I spent a week at Phillip Island on this bike, and the fastest I went was a 1 minute 40.4. So I thought to myself, what the F's have I done? The only good thing about it is my teammate Doug Poland, who was a world champion, did a 1 minute 41.8. So I was way faster than him, but we were just not on the pace. And the only race I ever really rode against Mick Doohan on equal machinery was on this bike, and it was at the Sugo race. And he came to the Sugo race, probably not as motivated as I was, but I wasn't very motivated at the end of '98 when I missed out the championship by 4.5 points. But he came, and we rode the Sugo race, and on that race meeting, Taddy Okada beat us both, but I beat Mick Doohan by 5 seconds. So that was the only time I'd ridden against Mick on equal machinery, so I was a bit chuffed about that.
Well, I went to England, I rode a Kawasaki in the British Superbike round, and I wasn't really quite on the pace, but then it poured with rain at Snetterton. I ended up third in in the superbike race, first one. And then I went to the Isle of Man, and I was quite good friends with Mark Farmer, who rode the Britain. And I'd been out with him a couple of nights before. We had a great night and stuff. And then when the Isle of Man, I followed him in practice. I was next in line. I was riding the Yamaha 600. And I came around the corner, and he was, yeah, that's right, you were there, organised it all. But yeah, Mark was unfortunately killed, high-sided, and so I kind of went back and said a quick goodbye. But then I went back to England, and his team asked me to take his place on the YZF Loctite Yamaha. I just thought, when I went to Snetterton, actually, the first time in that Kawasaki, Mark was on, and I was going to be a competitor. I'd just come from Malaysia, and he knew that, it's kind of on the pace that he was on there. And he just told me to tag on to the back of him so I could just follow him around and learn the track and get up to speed. Yeah, he's a really, really good guy. But so I ended up riding the Loctite Yamaha in England for the last 7 meetings, I think.
And really amazing, he's on a 600 bike. Hadn't seen the thing, come over on the ferry a few days. He goes out, and after a few laps, he's 109 miles an hour. My God, people couldn't believe it. Talented guy, that man.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to move on now to the last 2 bikes of the evening, because Aaron had spent a lot of time on the RC45 that you saw over there, and it had reached the end of its life by 98 or something like that, you know what I mean? And Honda are understanding we're pushing a lot of problem, because we're running 750 bikes up against 1000cc bikes all the time, and we're just getting beaten by what the Americans call cubic inches.
That's the thing about the Japanese too. I mean, through my World Superbike career, I had a couple of chances to jump ship and go to Ducati, and I never really did, because I liked the way the Japanese did things. I liked the way the structure. I'm a very structured person, like to know what's going on. I didn't like to turn up for the first round for Ducati and not have a signed contract. So this bike came along, and I was on the Japanese back from all through my career, going, if there's 4 manufacturers riding 750s and 1 manufacturer riding 1000s, why don't we just protest them? Why don't we change the rules? And the Japanese are very honourable people. They wouldn't get together as a group and just go and change it, And I thought I had thought a lot of that. I thought that was a great thing by them. They were going to beat them in their own game. But we were getting tired of getting thrashed, and we won a couple of championships. Scott Russell won in '93 on the Kawasaki, and my teammate John Kaczynski won in the wet in '97. But then they decided that they'd make a V-twin bike, so they made the Firestorm back in about '98, and the Firestorm sold plenty of motorcycles. It was a really good seller for them, and it was really quite cheap. So they sold that in great numbers, and then in 1998, when I was leading the World Championship, I was also flying back and forward to Japan testing their V-twin. And the V-twin I was testing was to end up with this bike, but it was actually a Firestorm, so a normal chassis, not the cradle chassis like this, and where the engine was a stress member and things like that. And at the end of the 98 season, we were at Suzuki, and the test was, I went there, I knew we had another year with the RC45, but what we were going to do next. And Honda said, this is really up to you which way we turn. Do we stay 4-cylinder or go twins? And I was the only one riding this bike at the time, and I was at Suzuki, and I was following Ito, and he was on an RC45. And by the end of the 3-day test, I'd slipped in behind him, and I was following him on a fast lap, and Ito knew the track really well, and I'd gone around the track on the Firestorm half a second slower than he had. So I was pretty chuffed with that, and then we downloaded all the info, and I was actually 25k an hour down the back straight and front straight, slower than he was. So the bike just had no horsepower. But once we found that V-twin, how narrow it was, how easy it was to change direction, it was just so much easier to ride. So that was the deciding moment that if we get some horsepower of this bike, we're going to be in the game. So all through 1999, I still rode the RC45, but developed this bike. So riding side by side, and sort of 99 was a bit of a weird season for me, like missing the championship by 4.5 points in 98, and 99 had a really bad year. Was doing a lot of flying back and forwards to Japan to get this bike ready for the year 2000. And then we suddenly got this bike ready, and then I had a brain bleed, so went on and had an operation on that, and my teammate goes on to win the World Championship. So
Yeah.
we finally got my 1000cc motorcycle and don't get to ride it. But I rode the rest of the year on the bike, and you know, I actually didn't really enjoy riding. I preferred the four-cylinder bikes, and I just think that, you know, these bikes had so much torque, and it was quite funny really. Back in Louth and Lincolnshire in England, you know, we'd run all our engines in at the workshop, and we put this thing on the dyno, and it was about 2 or 3 horsepower down on the RC45, but it made 30% more torque. And it's all those years of Carl Fogarty saying how wonderful he was and how good he was at corner speed, and suddenly you realise that the guy's got 30% more torque, so no wheel spin, can drive off, you know, in any gear they wanted to. You know, in all the years we were competing against the Ducati on the RC45, we had 6 ratios for each gear. We had 3 primary drives for the clutch. So we had about 18 different gear selections for every gear to get it perfect for every track. Ducati would just come along and change their final drive ratio and go, oh, well, we'll use 3-speed this week. Yeah. And it just, I didn't think it was a very fair playing field. And so we came out that year, and Colin went out and won the championship.
So that was the pinnacle of all your development work, and well done. And you must be proud of these motorcycles that you helped develop, yeah?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good memories there.
So we had Kiwis at the front of this technical thing and stuff like that. It's wonderful. Thank you, Dale, and thanks, guys.
Cheers.